this is the training for effective classroom procedures. Here is our Touchstone standards. I'm going to look at the highly effective one. You can go over others as you want. You can pause the video. The teacher, highly effective is the teacher proactively designs, explicitly teaches, and consistently reinforces classroom procedures that support student success. Procedures are clearly communicated, development appropriate, and seamlessly integrate into daily routines. Students follow procedures independently, requiring minimal reminders. The classroom operates efficiently, maximizing learning time and minimizing disruptions. So effective classroom procedures. So I want you to think about how you would give instruction on what you want a procedure to be, what you need to say. So I want to have you think about drawing a frog. So take a second about drawing a frog, and think about what you would, if it would look like this. This is what I expect it to look like. So when I told you to draw a frog, I expect it to look like this. When you drew your frog, does it look the same? You need to visualize what you want the students to give and make sure that you are explicit in your instruction on what to do. Why do we need procedures? We need procedures to be able to help keep our classrooms under control. The better our procedures are, the easier it will be to go through your day-to-day instructions and keep your classroom under control. And order does matter. Math joke. Okay. So the number one problem in the classroom is not discipline. It's the lack of authentic task procedures and routines. Effective classroom teachers have a classroom management plan with all the procedures necessary for a classroom to run consistently and smooth for learning to take place. Student achievement at the end of the year is directly related to the degree in which teachers establish good classroom control at the very first week of school. So you need to sit down and think about what your procedures are going to be at the beginning, and don't just come up with them on the fly. And that came from The First Days of School by Harry Wong. Routines and schedules are what will prevent you from getting burned out and overwhelmed and exhausted. I have found this very helpful. Using the routines have helped me throughout the years be able to be more prepared and able to go home less stressed in the day. Okay, so I want you to think about some possible procedures you may use in your classroom. I'm going to show you a list. There's a whole bunch of them. Don't get overwhelmed. Look at ones that are the most important for you. Some of the most important ones for me would be my bell ringer procedure. That is a big one that I need to go over. Passing papers, getting into groups. Think about which ones that you really need them to know. I still have to work on passing pencils and that kind of stuff, and make sure you have expectations. Okay, there's a difference between trying to control students and establishing control of your classroom. Rules about compliance, procedures about coherence. So there's a difference between procedures versus rules, or CHAMPS, which you would talk about in another training. Again, rules are about compliance. You have to do this, you have to do that. Procedures about our coherence. This is the order we do things that'll help those rules apply. Too many rules can be overwhelming to the students. So can be too many procedures. So the 3 steps to teaching your routines. First, explain, state, explain, model, and demonstrate the procedure. Demonstrating the procedure is very important. You can explain all you want, but if they don't understand how it works, they will not be able to follow as clearly. Rehearse, practice the procedure. Make sure you give yourself time when you have a new procedure that you are doing. Make sure that you add time in your lesson to make sure that you can practice the new procedure. And then reinforce, reteach, rehearse, practice, and reinforce so that it becomes a habit. For ones that are daily, you should make sure to go over, reteach, and rehearse within that first week. I sometimes give daily, weekly reteach of some daily ones to remind them as they begin the year. I also do reteach at the end after a long break to help them, so make sure it's become the habit. So let's try that again. Again, think about drawing a frog. So here we are drawing a frog. I'm giving you step by step and giving you my demonstration that I can show as well. So we draw a circle. Then we draw 2 small circles above the circle. Again, to be explicit, showing the demonstration, giving the demonstration helps them visualize what it is instead of just trying to have them use your instruction. Add a black dot in each of the small circles. Add a smile near the top of the circle and draw 2 small ovals by the bottom left and bottom right of the circle. Draw 2 sets of 3 lines at the bottom of the circle between the ovals. When I wrote this instruction, I knew that my demonstration would be a lot better than just trying to describe it to them. So I make sure I have my demonstrations prepared to show. And then finally draw 3 lines pointing out at the bottom of both ovals. And now all students follow what my expectations are for my procedure for doing the frog. I made sure to do it step by step and made sure to demonstrate as I went through. Okay, so this is examples of how to help you get ready for procedures. So what is the procedure? How will you introduce it to your students? What kind of practice will students do? And how will you assess the students' use of procedures? So here's some examples. First example is turning in homework. So for me, homework would be assigned starting the first week of school, and I would show the students where the homework bin where they can put their homework in at the beginning of class. They will at that time put their homework in the bin. So there's our practice, and the following classes they will be reminded where the homework should be placed as the class comes into class. And that will happen the first couple of every day, and then you can break it down to every week as you need it. And how I will assess, I will continue to remind students and see who turns in their homework and check in with those students to clarify the procedures. Here's another example. When a student is stuck, the first in-class assignment I consider to be challenging, bring up to do when you are stuck. I also have a sign about it. Using the sign to illustrate, I will tell them, first check notes, second ask neighbor or partner, third ask another, fourth ask the teacher. I will cover up the sign and ask them to repeat with me what they do when they are stuck with choral response. Choral response is a great way to make sure that you practice. If students ask for my help, I remind them of procedures and ask if they have followed it. I can ask the group if they are also stuck on this part. So your turns, things to think about, implement your plan. So right away, just pick 4 or 5. Don't get overwhelmed. Pick 4 or 5 procedures you plan to use. Everyday procedures, intermittent procedures, procedures that only happen once in a while, like tests for me, getting into groups. I also have activities that we do that by the end of the year, I don't have to even give the instruction. All I say is, you know what to do, let's go, and it goes great. And always go back and rethink your failed procedures. We'll skip that and then go on to the next one. It says, does it always work the first time? I can tell you from experience that no, it does not always work the first time. So things you need to do, learn to observe and adjust. So if it doesn't work the first time, figure out why and adjust. You may have to adjust class to class as well, but try to keep it pretty consistent. My experience, like I said, groups, I have a very specific way I like desks to be turned when we get into groups. And first thing that I do is I usually have one group be my example and show them, explain explicitly, have them practice a few times. This one I do in some classes on an almost daily basis. So so our reteach gets a little less and less. Passing papers. This year I discovered that after 2 tries of explaining how I wanted papers to be turned, the next time I forgot to tell them, but they got it right. And I made sure to also praise my students when they are following procedures correctly. And again, my bell ringers unfortunately are one for me that I have to reinforce daily. Something about talking doesn't always help with that one. And again, you have to be very specific in what your explanation is, because students will look for loopholes. So when to implement your procedures. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to give every single procedure that first week of school. Focus on the ones that you'll be using daily and maybe the first few that you'll be doing, but don't get too overwhelmed with what you need to do. Again, are they all at once or when you need it? And I could teach them how to, what the procedures are for playing one of my games, but if I don't do it for a month and a half, it's not helpful until it is when needed. So make sure you don't get too overwhelmed. We don't want to be stressed, so take it a day at a time. So thank you for listening. I hope this has helped.